Heatwave struck, sending over 100 students to the ER, including my daughter. My wife Tina is the sole importer of certain meds in the country. She promised to get them to us by afternoon, but she's gone AWOL. I watched helplessly as my former students became cold bodies. Our only daughter received her 10th critical condition notice. Hands trembling, I dialed Tina's number, only for Eric, her first love, to pick up. I couldn't hold my anger. I yelled. Finally, Tina's voice came through. What's the rush? They can't last till tomorrow? Eric's daughter needs to be admitted now. Before I could explain, she hung up, and I broke down. But Tina, those kids, so young. They didn't even make it through the night. By the early hours, doctors declared my daughter died despite efforts to save her. The OR doors opened for the 5th time, the doctor weary. His tone had shifted from urgent to hopeless. Ben, your daughter can't hold on. We've used all the hospital's antiviral meds, and without imports, we can only regretfully say, I collapsed against the wall, shaking, my pale lips trembling. Just 5 hours ago, this OR had processed dozens of student bodies. Took a full 3 hours to clear them. These were the vibrant lives that once called me teacher. I promised their parents Tina would bring the meds in time. But now they're gone. The hospital doesn't even have spare morgue space. The news said the virus had mutated in the heat, with a higher fatality rate. Surviving students developed nephritis from infected wounds. More doctors poured into this OR, and none returned. Machines kept beeping warnings, my heart pounding. A doctor beside me frowned fiercely, gripping my shoulder. You're out of time. He turned back into the OR, racing to save my daughter from death. Tears streamed as I wiped them with my dirt-streaked sleeve. With swollen hands, I dialed Tina, fumbling with swollen fingers. Panic covered my face. Words rolled out like I was lying to myself. There had to be meds. She's the kid's mom. My daughter won't die, right? But will she bring them? I've called her 100 times, never answered once. As I stepped out to find her, my phone connected. Relief washed over me. Our daughter would survive. But before I spoke, Eric's voice came through. Tina's admitting my daughter. Anything I can pass on? My knuckles whitened, teeth chattered with rage, their clinking audible over the line. So, 100 lives on my end mean less than his daughter's admission? I shook with fury, chest heaving, struggling for breath. Our only daughter lay inside, fighting for life. Yet my wife, the child's mother, fussed over her ex's daughter, couldn't spare a minute for meds. Pathetically, I swallowed anger to plead, can you give her the phone? It's really urgent. Eric's tone softened suddenly. Ben, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to compete for Tina. My daughter's sick. Tina's angry voice cut him off. Next moment, she had the phone back. Ben, what's your problem? Eric's daughter is really sick. If I don't get the meds over, she'll die. So, she diverted a shipment meant for this hospital to Eric's so-called daughter? Tina, you're something. I couldn't hold my rage any longer. Yelling, his daughter dying doesn't concern me. Get the drugs, our daughter's dying. 5 years married and not once was I this harsh. Tina blew up instantly. How dare you yell at me? Our daughter just has heat stroke. Stop the drama. I agreed to your show. Isn't that enough? Don't threaten me with school casualties. If true, the news would cover it. She's oblivious. All journalists at the hospital caught it too. Her voice grew impatient. I warn you, watch your tone. Upset me once more. Kiss your meds goodbye forever. Forget custody. Our daughter became a pawn for my supposed jealousy. I clenched my fists, anger boiling. Ready to argue, I heard what seemed like her doors in the background. Eric's voice with a fake tremor. Tina, is she okay? She's my sole support now, losing her would be end. You're all I missed, and this I treasure. His voice faded. Tina, eager to reassure her ex. Recalling my daughter fighting for life, I snapped. Tina, give me the drugs. I'll get them myself if I must. Sick of you too. Before, securing our daughter's hospital bed needed her favor for Eric. I swallowed pride, agreed, yet didn't get the meds. My teeth nearly ground to bits. At my shout, Tina's tone shifted. What medicine? You're just scared I'm cheating, right? I told you his daughter is sick. If you don't believe me, just come see for yourself. Ben, if you just admit you were jealous, I might actually respect you a bit. But now you're using his daughter as an excuse? What, we're not saving 100 lives or something? Got better so quickly. Huh? Ben, I knew you were acting. You disgust me. She finished and hung up quickly. My nails pressed hard enough to warp, a faint line of blood seeping out. Yet I felt no pain. Tina sent me an address after hanging up. It was a hospital about 10 kilometers away. The machines in the operating room were still sounding alarms. This address was my last hope. I clutched my phone and ran out fast. With the virus spreading wildly, there wasn't a soul on the street. Having Tina's address now, I realized I couldn't hail a cab at all. My face was covered in either nervous sweat or just sweat from the scorching sun. Days of neglect made sweat drip off my beard endlessly. Finally, after a jog to the hospital, I saw Tina. I was so exhausted. I looked worse than a homeless person. Just 2 steps in, her bodyguard stopped me. She heard the commotion and turned. The moment she laid eyes on me, there was only disdain. She pointed to the lit-up operating room and snapped, Ben, open your damn eyes and look. Is this kid sick or not? Did I cheat or not? I stopped, my hands stretched halfway to get medicine, a painful pull tearing at the corners of my mouth. You thought I was lying? Tina looked at me as if I were trash. Haven't you been lying to me ever since Eric showed up? Staring at the face I once loved to death, her angelic facade now revealed a devilish leer. I couldn't help but laugh coldly. At the start of the heat wave, our daughter was among the first to get heat stroke. I called her immediately, but she was busy on a date with Eric. I used the heat stroke meds I'd stocked up at home to barely pull our daughter through it. But when she came home to see our daughter bouncing around, she instantly cursed me out, accused me of being despicable, using our daughter's health as a pawn because of jealousy. Our relationship seemed to crack from that point. Every time after was no exception. She thought I was playing the boy who cried wolf. But I was snatching our daughter back from death's door each time. Facing her accusations, I knew there was no point explaining anymore. My daughter was still in the operating room waiting for me. I spoke up coldly. Give me the medicine. My daughter can't hold on much longer. Tina sighed and told her assistant to fetch it, all the while scanning me cautiously. Your daughter's really sick? Show me a video call if she is. My eyes widened, frozen where I stood. How could you, as a mother, say something like that? Tina, are you out of your damn mind? Right now, our daughter is fighting for her life, and she thinks I'm exploiting this for attention? I laughed and raged. She fired up at my aggressive tone. What's your attitude? You say you need medicine. How do I know you won't use it yourself or sell it off? Don't you know how expensive meds are these days? I laughed bitterly, her gaze growing colder. This is the woman I love. This is the mother of our child. Seeing my expressionless face, panic flashed in her eyes. Fine, I said I'd give it to you, so take it. Use it however you want. My lips quivered as I looked at her like I was watching a demon from hell. The assistant brought the medicine, handing it to me. But Eric broke the silence, so envious. Your daughter's already so smart, helping her dad like this, while mine's still uncertain. His face showed a bitter smile, full of sadness. Tina immediately turned to comfort him. Don't worry, every imported medicine comes to me first. We can definitely save her. She hooked her arm through Eric's, with a tenderness I'd never seen from her. The pair looked so right together standing there before the operating room. Truly a perfect match. I didn't even have the energy to feel bitter. My eyes fell on her car. I begged for one last favor, already losing faith in this relationship. Could you have your assistant drive me? My daughter can't wait any longer. Tina waved impatiently. Just when I was about to get in, the operating room doors swung open. The doctor shook his head, the familiar words we did our best echoing too often. Yet a flash of satisfaction crossed Eric's eyes. When he turned to Tina, he was pale and desperate. Please take us to a bigger hospital. It's their poor skills, it must be. My daughter can't die, no way. I had to admit, his act was more convincing than mine. Tina quickly bent down to help him up, shooting a glance at her assistant. In a flash, I was shoved out of the car by the assistant. You walk. We need to get them to another hospital first. I was stunned, holding onto the car seat desperately, the assistant unable to pull me out. Tina rushed to me. Seeing her almost murderous gaze, I understood I stood no chance against Eric. I could only beg, the hospital where my daughter's surgery is really good. We can go on the way. But before Tina could speak, Eric immediately refused. I can't, the back seat's for the stretcher and I need to sit in the front. There's really no room, Ben. I'm begging you. Give my daughter a chance to live. She needs to transfer hospitals immediately. To make it more believable, Eric even kneeled before me. Tina turned white with fright, almost rushing into his arms with empathy. I gritted my teeth, swallowing my humiliation as I stepped back from the car. Turning, I leaped onto the back, my bloody nails gripping the seams of the car chassis hard. Will this do, Tina? You save his daughter, I don't mind. Just drive, I'll jump off when we're there. I'm begging you. My daughter needs me. Seeing my desperate and humble face filled her with contempt. Enough, Ben, stop messing around. Are you trying to embarrass me? Get lost. I'll head to the hospital to see our daughter once I'm done. All right? Stop acting. Eric is really worried. She said this and immediately had someone lift the stretcher into the car. Eric, standing to the side, gave me a smug smile. The sports car sped off and I was running as fast as I could, teeth clenched. My hand gripped tightly around the medicine for my daughter. I never hated myself more than at that moment. My wife of 5 years would rather believe a resurfaced first love who just came back to the country. She believed in the fake daughter he brought to act out this scene, rather than accepting our daughter was critically ill. My face was wet again, maybe tears, maybe sweat. By the time I reached the hospital, an hour had passed. Panting, I stepped through the door, only to find the operating room light already off. Waiting for me was nothing but my daughter's death certificate. The moment the doctor announced it, I felt every ounce of strength drain from my body. I collapsed to the ground, a living person reduced to a tiny urn. My eyes were too dry to cry anymore. I went to the cemetery that Tina and I had reserved for after our deaths. The mortality rate was too high. Plots were in short supply. After burying them, I went home to fetch my daughter's favorite toys. But when I returned, the whole cemetery had been dug up again. Tina stood there, hands on her hips, face full of anger. You used the plot I bought without asking? They won't be in business for long if they keep it up. Mouth agape. I rushed to the grave, knees thrusting into the dirt. The urn had been tossed aside, and her ashes scattered everywhere. I was a mess, covering my head and yelling tearlessly. Tina, what did you do? That was your daughter. Eric stood there, eyes filled with pride and disdain. I bent down, almost lying on the ground, using bloody fingers to gently gather my daughter's scattered ashes. I barely collected some when a gust of wind blew them all away. I was shaking and choked, my eyes seething with hatred. Tina frowned at my actions and yelled sharply. Stop acting crazy. What, you think you can just use the plot for your relative without telling me? Can't I just get a new one for him? Eric's daughter needs it now. She kept going, but I stayed kneeling there, clutching my daughter's urn. The pain was so great it became numb, nearly suffocating me. I couldn't save her life, and now I couldn't even fight for a tiny plot of land for her. My head dropped, blurry eyes on the mingled ashes and earth. Seeing my silence, Tina lost patience. She pushed me, but I fell forward onto the ground. I'd used all my strength just running to the hospital. Tina finally noticed something was wrong. She, for the first time, lowered her voice to me. Please stop this. I'll have them find another plot right now. Okay? I trembled as I got up, my eyes devoid of any warmth. No need. Our daughter wouldn't want any ties with you. Panic flashed in her eyes before turning to anger. What daughter? What nonsense are you talking? Got cursed by the ashes? I picked up the fallen urn lid, gently placing it back. I turned to leave. Tina was just about to grab me when Eric stopped her. Isn't he overreacting because you buried your daughter in the plot you both planned on for yourselves? He thoughtfully watched me walk away. Seems like your daughter inherited some weak genes. Why else would she get sick every time you guys left? I suddenly stopped at his words. I set the urn down and turned back around, hitting him straight in the face. Tina's scream startled a flock of birds. Ben, are you out of your mind? Eric's cheek puffed up, and my hand was covered in blood. I looked at Tina coldly. Yes, I am crazy. I lost it the moment you discarded our daughter's life. When you ignored her safety, I lost it. She didn't even scold me, rushing to Eric to check his injuries. The concern on her face, something our daughter never received. I laughed bitterly. I bent down, picked up the urn again, and left. Maybe my unusual behavior made Tina uneasy. She actually called after me. I'll have someone buy the latest toys to send over to her. Okay? Stop it already. She just got heat stroke. But Eric's daughter is already dead. I couldn't believe Eric's hired actress could fool such a savvy businesswoman. Our daughter didn't even get the medicine she was promised before dying. I murmured to myself, toys? Tina never understood. Our daughter never liked toys. Just because she once said toys affected her grades. Knowing how Tina felt, our daughter threw away everything in her room except books that day. Seeing that I ignored her, Tina lost it. What do you want, really? I even lowered myself. I'm going to see our daughter today. Is that still not enough? My face was gray with despair. See our daughter? She needed nothing from her now. I didn't stop, my steps slow, but each one more determined than the last. Her voice got quieter and quieter. But just as I was walking down the street, I got a message from her. What do you have to do to let us go? Can you be reasonable? If you go too far, I'll call and cancel our daughter's spot. I'll cancel her speech at the sports event too. She threatened, one message after another. I just looked up and laughed. Tears ran down my chin from the curve of my lip. This was all because of the sports event she sponsored. Even though the heat wave had started, she insisted on the event for her daughter's overseas plans and her company's promotion, forcing the school to hold it by throwing money at them. The result? 3 hours under the blazing sun, and all the students ended up in the hospital. That's why I agreed to let Tina deliver the medicine. She sowed the seeds. She had to reap them. She had wanted her daughter to study abroad and get the best education for a long time. But for such a young child, of course, I couldn't agree. As the temperature kept rising, I suggested several times to the school leaders to cancel the event. But they didn't want to lose Tina's funding. All these years, if I hadn't intervened, our daughter might have died abroad long ago. But unexpectedly, right under my nose, I couldn't protect her either. Guilt and remorse filled my broken heart. She never understood what our daughter truly wanted. After going back, I immediately began packing for me and our daughter. I bought a ticket to the mountains for myself. After this incident, the air here disgusted me. For the obsession of one person like Tina, the school buried hundreds of lives. I just want to spend the rest of my life teaching in the mountains, atoning for the mistakes I've made. Since it happened, I haven't shut my eyes once. Whenever I tried to close my eyes to rest, the innocent smiles of those children would appear before me, calling me Ben, so sweet and understanding. I quickly packed up and left. But then I received another message from Tina. I may have to bail this time. Eric just lost his only daughter. He's not eating or drinking. I have to be with him first. Please look after our daughter. I'll come by later. I read the words on the screen, and a cold smile tugged at my lips. Our daughter didn't need her anymore. This wasn't Eric's first breakdown either. Compared to Eric, we were nothing but obstacles on her road to true love. Just as I was about to shut down my phone and hit the road, another message from Tina came through. I've already got some of the latest test papers for our daughter. Make sure she works on them. I'll be there as soon as I can. My hand tightened around my phone, lashes trembling. This was the woman I'd loved for 5 years. Her heart was harder than a rock. This time, I simply turned off the phone. The road to the mountains takes a good 10 hours or so. I gently touched the pendant around my neck. where only our daughter's ashes remained. After hours of bumpy travel, the vehicle finally came to a stop. It's cool in the mountains, no need to worry about heatstroke. Watching the kids running around, my heart ached. If my daughter had lived here, could she have lived a carefree life? Would she not have left this world so early? A few lively boys ran up to me, offering to show me to my room. Their smiles seemed to bring my heart back to life. Or maybe it was just my imagination. The pendant around my neck felt warm. On the way, I turned my phone back on. Messages from Tina came in one after another. Before I could read any, her call appeared on the screen. I frowned and answered it. Her voice, almost losing her sanity, echoed. Ben, where are you? I've sent the test materials to the hospital, but they said no one signed for them. Do you know what you're doing? You're ruining our daughter's future. How much schoolwork has she missed being hospitalized for so long? Her screams of anger reached my ears, filled with ridicule. Tina, my daughter's life was ruined by you long ago. Hearing my cold retort, her anger reached its peak. What has gotten into you? Let our daughter get on the phone. I bet she wouldn't side with you in such madness. Let me talk to her. Are you chickening out? Just wait. I'm on my way to the hospital. In the next instant, I hung up on her mid-sentence. The line went silent as her voice was cut off. The boys looked at me with sympathetic eyes. Mister, does your wife not like you? I smiled, patting their heads, my heart slowly sinking. Even kids could see what I had lied to myself about for years. And I'd paid with our daughter's life. The conditions in the mountains weren't great, but the room they prepared for me was clean and tidy. The boys, seeing my pleasant surprise, shyly scratched their heads. I took out the candy I'd prepared from my pocket. But the journey had been hot, and it was now stuck to the wrapper. Frowning in awkwardness, we exchanged a glance, and they swiftly snatched the candy from my hands, running out of the room with a thank you carried by the wind. Living close to nature, the gloom in my heart lifted quite a bit. The parents enthusiastically introduced me to the local customs. During dinner, Tina called again. I hung up straight away, but it seemed she wouldn't stop until I answered. Seeing the worried looks at the table, I finally answered. Her usually icy voice now choked with unexpected emotion. Tina's hoarse voice stumbled out. Ben, where did you take our daughter? I'm at the hospital. Why are they telling me she's gone? Are you all playing a trick on me? The more she spoke, the more impatient she became. I remained expressionless. Passed away means passed away. Hard to understand? Tina, can you understand simple words? She didn't expect me to be so cold and lowered herself. Please, I won't bother you, okay? Just let me hear her voice. I know I messed up this time. Is my daughter right next to you? Sweetheart, could you please say something to mommy? I know I was wrong. Can you forgive me? A cheeky boy from the farm answered me, whispering in my ear, Ma'am, there are no girls around here. Ben came alone. Tina went silent for a bit, collecting herself quickly. Ben, where are you? I'm coming to find you. Wait for me there. I glanced up at the hills in the distance. There's no need. I don't want to see you anymore. Our daughter is gone. I told you that you didn't believe me. We have nothing left to say. I left the divorce papers on the table. Sign them when you get back. With that, I hung up. I looked at the mountains ahead of me. I had often told Tina about this place. The kids here suffer because they can't get a decent education. I used to say I wanted to come here and teach, but she thought the environment was too harsh. I'll give you 50 grand a month. Just teach our daughter well, she'd say. Looking back, we were never a good match. She was a businesswoman, always counting the profits. In some moments, she was human, mainly around Eric. But I'm a teacher. Teaching is my calling. The poor environment is not an excuse. It's why I wanted to be here. My stubbornness cost me my love, my daughter, and countless lives. I can never forget the hopeful parents waiting outside the operating room for Tina to bring the medicine. Are you okay? Hurry and eat before it gets cold, reminded a local farmer, breaking my thoughts. His genuine smile reassured me. I nodded in thanks. Just as I finished eating and began tutoring the kids, I heard the distant rumble of a helicopter. Tina had once bought a private plane, which later became a medical supply transport during a heat wave. 10 minutes after the noise stopped, Tina's voice echoed in the valley. Ben, where are you? I'm here. Come out and see me. Where did you take our daughter? I've already called the cops. If you don't come out, they'll arrest everyone here. I clenched my jaw. How did she find this place? As I stood up, it hit me she had once activated family sharing on her map. I quickly opened the app, noticed she was live, and turned off the feature. With a sigh, I left the room. What good is it now that she's here? If she had been this prompt when our daughter was critical, my daughter wouldn't have died. The moment I came out, Tina's eyes lit up with a flicker of hope. I laughed outright. Did she really think seeing me meant she'd see our daughter? The next moment, she stormed up to me, heels clicking, and slapped me across the face. The sound echoed throughout the valley. The local farmers watching looked at me with concern. I shrugged them off. After 5 years of marriage, I understood Tina well. She seemed furious, but her panic was setting in. She was desperate. After hitting me, her eyes welled up with tears, her fists weakly hitting my chest. Ben, where did you take my daughter? Give me back my child. I pointed to the necklace around my neck. This is all that's left of her ashes. The rest was scattered by your first love at the cemetery. Her eyes widened, mouth open in disbelief. No, impossible. This can't be true. Tina collapsed, holding tightly to my shirt, sinking to her knees. Her phone rang incessantly, but she ignored it. Annoyed, I grabbed it and answered the call. Tina, you need to get back. There's trouble at the company. Her secretary's anxious voice rang out. The funds for the new drug shipment have vanished. Tina's face turned ashen, trembling as she took back the phone. What? How is that possible? I told Eric to handle it. Mid-sentence, realization dawned on her, and her eyes shifted to my face. I stayed cool. I had warned her numerous times about Eric. It had caused rifts between us. Because of it, I had to approach the school about canceling the press conference instead. Tina's strength left her, and she crumpled to the ground. How could this happen? With tears streaming, I spoke impatiently. There's no need to find me. Go back. Our daughter isn't with me. Don't ever come to see me again. She stared at me, lost in thought. I walked away without another word. She had chosen Eric over me, and now she had to face the consequences. Inside, I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. The noise of the helicopter faded into silence. My phone was flooded with news about Tina's trouble paying deposits. Some hospitals, previously long-term partners, had already sued her company. Legal talk shows were camping out at the airport, broadcasting live. In the broadcast, one of the hosts spotted Tina as she landed. They shouted her name just as police took her away, her face a picture of panic. She looked just like I did when I hurried for our daughter's medicine. The broadcaster followed her into the station, eager for the scoop. Once inside, Tina tried to report a fraud, claiming she was scammed. People gathered at the station's doors. It's then the screen cut to someone familiar, the child Eric had hired to pose as our daughter. Tina, too, saw and froze in her tracks. The cops around hadn't even reacted when she lunged forward. She grabbed the girl's neck tightly. The girl's face turned red quickly. One of the officers forcefully knocked Tina's hand away, and the girl coughed violently, clutching her throat. How are you alive? Weren't you cremated and buried? Tina shouted. The police immediately sensed something was off. The girl hesitated for a long time before confessing. She was an orphan, nearly starving when she met Eric. Eric gave her a lot of money with only one purpose, to pretend to be his daughter. That day, she slipped out of another door behind the operating room. When Tina heard this, she completely broke down. She covered her head with her hands and cried loudly. She kept muttering, "I'm sorry. I really didn't know. I'm sorry." I knew she was apologizing to me and her daughter. But what good is regret now? My daughter can never come back. Those young lives are a permanent scar in the hearts of all the parents. Her selfishness cost her dearly, but haven't we all paid too? I gently touched the pendant around my neck. Apologies now carry no meaning. I just hope my daughter never meets a mother like this again in her next life. Tina explained the whole story of how she and Eric met. Experienced officers at the scene knew what to do immediately and ordered a lockdown at the airport. It had only been 2 hours since the incident, so Eric might not have gotten far. When hundreds of grieving parents heard about Tina's arrest, they rushed into the police station, ignoring security. The once spacious area became instantly crowded. Shouts of curses pierced Tina's ears. Tina cried tears of despair and regret. "I'm sorry. I truly didn't know they were sick," she insisted. She thought we were all acting, all in it for her medicine. She believed we were all joking with our children's lives. I tried to force a smile. Her words deeply provoked the parents present, and chaos broke out. It took 2 police squads to regain control. Soon, the officers sent news from the airport. Eric had been successfully apprehended. Their swift action caught Eric just as he was about to board a plane. The frustration inside the police station seemed to ease a bit. Everyone understood that while Tina was hateful, Eric was the mastermind behind it all. 10 minutes later, several officers brought Eric back. Once again, the scene went out of control. Perhaps because Tina is a woman, the parents had shown some restraint. But this time, they didn't hold back. Within a minute, Eric's face was unrecognizable. These parents seemed like judges emerging from hell, seeking justice. The police forcibly cleared the area, leaving just Tina and Eric. Why did you do this to me? I didn't wrong you," Tina cried, her eyes instantly filling with tears. Eric didn't even acknowledge her. But Tina wasn't satisfied, asking the same question 5 more times. Eric finally lost his patience. He sneered, looking at Tina as if she was a fool. "Don't kid yourself. Did you really think you were some kind of prize? You didn't care about your own daughter, ignored your husband, and shamelessly stuck to me. Women like you shouldn't expect me to actually like you, right?" With that, he burst into laughter, tears of excitement rolling down his face. The live broadcast ended there. The rest was police investigation details. I turned off my phone and started prepping for the next day's class. Everything felt like it was over, yet strangely everlasting. My daughter will always be with me in another way. A week later, the Tina news cycle concluded. The assets Eric tried to move had been frozen. Tina donated everything she had to poor children across the country's rural areas. Her secretary mentioned that she shut down her company. She plans to spend the rest of her life volunteering in an orphanage. When I heard, I just nodded slightly. But can her sins really be forgiven?